What happens when the most terrifying weapon ever built by Nazi Germany ends up in the hands of one American who was never supposed to touch it? And that weapon becomes the only thing standing between 200 German soldiers and the bridge that would decide the war. The Germans had a name for the MG42. They called it the Hitler's buzzsaw. It fired 1,200 rounds per minute, 20 bullets every single second. The sound wasn't individual shots. It was a continuous scream, a ripping shriek that American soldiers said sounded like canvas being torn apart by God. Allied training films warned that the psychological effect was as dangerous as the bullets. Men froze when they heard it. Men who had survived artillery barrages pressed their faces into dirt and refused to move. The Germans positioned the MG42 at every choke point, every bridge. It was the reason American advances were measured in yards per hour. And on September 14, 1944, along the Moselle River in eastern France, one of those MG42s was about to be turned around by a man the army had classified as a cook. If stories of impossible defiance grip you the way they grip me, subscribe to this channel right now and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Corporal Eugene Stitch Barlow hadn't fired a weapon in combat for the entire war.
Move along.
Not because he couldn't.
Next, keep it moving.
Because the army
Yes,
wouldn't
sir.
let him. He'd enlisted in 1942 out of a textile mill in Gastonia, North Carolina. 12 years stitching fabric before the army stitched him into a uniform. Qualified marksman in basic, scored high enough for infantry. But the army needed cooks, and Barlow's number came up for the mess company attached to the 317th Infantry Regiment, 80th Division. The cooks carried .45 caliber pistols that were more for show than survival. The infantrymen treated mess crews with dependence and contempt. Spatula soldier, grease monkey, the man whose most dangerous weapon was a can opener. Barlow never responded. He just cooked, cleaned, and spent his free hours doing something nobody noticed. He studied captured weapons. The 80th Division had been pushing through eastern France since August. German units fought organized retreats, leaving damaged equipment behind. Barlow collected captured weapons, not as souvenirs, but as education. He stripped them down after dark in the mess tent. Car 98K, MP40, Walther P38. He learned how everyone worked. The infantryman thought it was a harmless hobby, a cook playing with guns he'd never use. The MG42 arrived on a Thursday. A patrol brought back a complete gun with 3 ammunition boxes, 750 rounds. The weapon was damaged. A rifle grenade had splintered the buttstock and cracked the pistol grip housing. Barrel, action, feed mechanism, all fine. But without a functional stock, the MG42 was 25 pounds of precision engineering. You couldn't aim at anything. The company armorer shrugged. Junk. Throw it on the pile. Barlow asked if he could have it. What's a cook going to do with a broken machine gun? Make it work. That answer got more laughter. But nobody stopped him. A broken enemy weapon in a cook's hands was nobody's problem. What Barlow did over the next 3 nights was something no manual covered. He fabricated an adapter from steel plate cut from a destroyed half-track's floor panel, drilled mounting holes with a hand brace from the motor pool, and grafted the buttstock from a damaged Browning automatic rifle onto the MG42's receiver. The bar stock was American, designed for American shoulders, heavier than the original German stock, slightly different angle, shorter length of pull. But when Barlow pressed it into his shoulder and looked down the barrel, something clicked. The iron sights aligned with his eye. The bar stock absorbed the recoil into the meat of his shoulder. A salvaged Thompson pistol grip gave his trigger hand a familiar angle. A German killing machine, wearing American clothes. The fastest firing infantry weapon on any battlefield, modified by a cook with textile mill hands, in the back of a mess tent, using parts from 3 different nations. He test-fired it into a hillside behind camp. 20 rounds. The sound made every man within a quarter mile hit the ground. They knew that ripping shriek. That was the enemy's voice, but it was coming from the wrong direction. Sergeant Torres found Barlow sitting on an ammunition crate, the hybrid across his knees. "Where in the living hell did you get that?" "Built it, Sarge." "You're a cook, Barlow. This one builds machine guns." Torres didn't confiscate it. He should have. Captured weapons were supposed to be tagged and sent to ordnance. A field-modified enemy weapon in a cook's hands was 9 violations stacked on top of each other. But Torres had taken 40% casualties, crossing the Moselle. If a cook wanted to carry a machine gun, he had bigger problems. He had no idea how quickly that machine gun would become the only thing between his company and annihilation. The 80th Division had secured a bridgehead across the Moselle at WWII 2 days earlier. The crossing had been brutal. German artillery zeroed on the approach roads, machine gun nests covering the riverbanks, engineer units working under fire to construct pontoon bridges. They had paid for that bridgehead in blood. Now they had to hold it. The problem was the stone bridge at the southern edge of the perimeter. A narrow, 2-lane structure the engineers hadn't wired for demolition because they planned to use it advancing east. But that plan assumed the Germans would keep retreating. The Germans stopped retreating. Intercepted radio traffic at 0400 indicated a counterattack. 2 companies of Panzergrenadiers, roughly 200 men, with at least 3 armored vehicles, assembling to hit the bridgehead from the south. Their objective, the stone bridge. Capture it, pour reinforcements across, roll up the entire American position. Every available rifleman was committed to the northern perimeter where the main attack was expected. The stone bridge was held by Corporal Denny Wicks and a squad of 8 men. M1 Garons, 1 bar, whatever ammunition they carried, against 200 Panzergrenadiers with armor. Wicks radioed for reinforcements. The answer came back in 3 words that every soldier dreads. None available. Hold. Barlow heard the radio traffic from the mess tent. He was supposed to be heating coffee for the morning shift. Instead, he picked up the hybrid MG42, slung 3 boxes of ammunition across his chest, 750 rounds, approximately 37 seconds of continuous fire at the weapon's cyclic rate, and walked toward the bridge. If you're still with me, hit that like button right now. Every like tells the algorithm that soldiers like Barlow deserve more than a footnote in a history book nobody reads. Torres spotted him crossing the perimeter. "Barlow, where the hell are you going?" "The bridge. Sarge, you're a cook." "Not today." Barlow reached the bridge at 0445. The sky was still dark. Corporal Wicks looked at him, looked at the weapon, and asked the only question that mattered. "Can you use that thing?" Barlow didn't answer with words. He set the MG42 on the stone railing of the bridge, adjusted the bipod legs to lock onto the flat surface, and laid the first belt of ammunition into the feed tray. The bridge was 180 yards long. The road on the far side ran straight for 400 yards before curving into a tree line. Anything that came down that road would be in his sights for the entire approach. There was no cover, no ditches, no side streets, just open road and a bridge with a cook and a stolen gun at the end of it. The Germans came at 0517. Barlow heard them before he saw them. Engines, the grinding diesel of half-tracks, then boots, the rhythmic crunch of infantry on gravel, then shadows emerging from the tree line 400 yards away, moving with the confidence of veterans who expected to sweep aside token resistance. Column formation, tight, efficient, half-tracks behind the infantry. An officer at the front, pistol drawn, arm raised. Barlow let them come. 400 yards, 350, 300. Wicks was whispering. "Open fire, Barlow, fire." "Not yet." 250 yards. He could see faces now, 200 yards. Now, the MG42 screamed. The sound hit the column before the bullets. Every German recognized it. That was their weapon, the Hitler's-Gate. Except it came from the wrong end of the bridge. The hesitation lasted less than a second. But a second was enough. Barlow walked the first burst across the front of the column at chest height. 20 rounds. The cyclic rate blurred individual reports into one continuous ripping sound that echoed off the river and stone. The muzzle flash strobed the pre-dawn darkness into freeze-frame horror. Men falling, men spinning. The tight formation became a death sentence. Bodies stacked. Soldiers tripped over the fallen. He released the trigger. Silence crashed back. Barrel smoking. Brass casings at his feet like golden rain. 4 seconds. 80 rounds. The front of the column had ceased to exist. But the Germans were Panzergrenadiers. Veterans. The shock lasted 10 seconds. NCOs screamed orders. The column dispersed, soldiers into ditches. Others sprinting for the tree line. Others prone and returning fire. A machine gun opened from the tree line. Another MG42. The real thing. Firing at him. Bullets stitched across the bridge. Stone chips sprayed Barlow's face. He found the enemy gun by its muzzle flash, aimed 6 inches below the flickering light. 3-second burst. The enemy gun went silent. The half-tracks pushed forward, armored hulls shielding regrouping infantry. Mounted MG34s on their upper decks, lighter than the 42, but lethal. Barlow couldn't penetrate the armor, but the gunners were exposed from the shoulders up. He killed the first at 220 yards. The second ducked. A ducking gunner is a non-firing gunner. Barlow shifted back to the infantry. The next 8 minutes were the longest of Eugene Barlow's life. He fired in controlled bursts, 3 to 5 seconds, release, scan, fire again. The MG42 devoured ammunition. Each burst chewed through belt. He had 750 rounds. At cyclic rate, that was 37 seconds of trigger time. 37 seconds to hold a bridge against 200 men. He rationed those seconds like water in a desert. Short bursts at clusters. Long bursts to suppress half-tracks. Silence between engagements to cool the barrel. Because the MG42 was designed for barrel changes every 250 rounds, and Barlow had no spare. If the barrel warped, the weapon died. If the weapon died, the bridge was lost. The Germans rushed the bridge twice. Both times Barlow met them at the midpoint, 90 yards. The MG42 at that range didn't wound. It dismantled. The bridge became impassable. Not because of any barrier, because of the bodies. The second rush cost Barlow his position. A rifle grenade landed 6 feet from the railing. The blast threw him sideways. Shrapnel opened his left forearm. His ears stopped working. The world became a silent film of muzzle flashes. He crawled back to the gun. Blood made the pistol grip slick. He wrapped torn uniform around his palm and kept firing. Wicks was hit. 2 of his squad dead. The remaining 5 were running low on Garand clips. The numbers said they were going to die in the next 3 minutes. Barlow looked at his last box. 1 belt, 250 rounds, 12 seconds of fire. The Germans were massing for a third rush behind the half-tracks. Officers grouping squads. NCOs checking weapons. All of them. All at once. If you're not subscribed yet, fix that now. Because next week we're uncovering another soldier who turned the enemy's own weapon against them in a way the history books never recorded. Barlow did something nobody expected. He stood up, lifted the 25-pound hybrid off the railing, and braced it against his hip. The bar stock jammed into his side. He couldn't aim, not standing, not from the hip, not with a weapon designed for prone fire with a bipod. But he wasn't trying to aim. He was trying to be seen. A cook from North Carolina, standing in the open on a bridge, holding a screaming German machine gun like something out of a movie that hadn't been made yet. The Germans saw him, and they heard the weapon start. Their sound, the buzzsaw, ripping through the dawn from a single man who should have been dead already, but was instead walking forward, firing from the hip, brass cascading around his boots, muzzle flash turning him into a strobe-lit ghost against the gray sky. 12 seconds. The last belt. The round sprayed in a wide, inaccurate arc that hit nothing with precision but hit everything with terror. The Hitlers screaming from the wrong side of the river broke something in the German formation that bullets alone couldn't break. They didn't charge. The third rush never came. The Panzergrenadiers pulled back. half-tracks reversed. By 0540, the road was empty except for the dead, and one American cook standing on a bridge holding a silent, empty smoking weapon he'd built from scraps in a mess tent. Reinforcements arrived at 0600. A platoon from Baker Company found Barlow sitting against the railing, the MG42 across his lap, left arm soaked in blood, face gray with stone dust and powder residue. The platoon leader counted the bodies on the road and bridge. Stopped at 40. There were more. How many men were with you? 8, sir. 5 left now. You held this bridge with 8 men. Barlow looked at the weapon in his lap. 7 men, and a gun that everybody said was broken. The army didn't know what to do with Eugene Barlow. He'd abandoned his post. Carried an unauthorized, field-modified enemy weapon into combat. Engaged the enemy without orders, or a proper infantry mose. Every regulation said court-martial. Every officer who saw the bridge said Silver Star. The Silver Star won. The citation praised extraordinary heroism and initiative in employing captured equipment. It did not mention the bar stock, the Thompson pistol grip, or the 3 nights of unauthorized gunsmithing in a mess tent. Some details are too embarrassing for official records. The hybrid MG42 was confiscated by ordnance. An intelligence officer examined it and reportedly said, "This shouldn't work, but the screw patterns are perfect." Who built this? A cook, sir. The officer stared for a long time. We need better cooks. Barlow went home to Gastonia, back to the textile mill. Stitched fabric for another 30 years. Never built another weapon. Never talked about the bridge unless asked, and almost nobody asked. But on his office wall, next to a faded photograph of his unit, he kept a single object. A wooden rifle stock, American-made, bar pattern, with scorch marks on the butt plate, and a notch filed into the grip that only he understood. His granddaughter asked about it once, near the end. He held it up and turned it in the light. They said a cook couldn't fight. They said a broken gun couldn't shoot. They said 8 men couldn't hold a bridge. He set the stock back on its hooks. I was a lousy cook anyway. The Germans called their MG42 the Hitlersk. The soldiers at the Moselle Bridge called Barlow's version something different. They called it the cook's buzzsaw. And for 12 minutes on a September morning, it held a bridge that an entire company of Panzergrenadiers couldn't take. Not because the weapon was special. Every MG42 was special. Because the man behind it refused to accept that a cook couldn't be a killer, that a broken gun couldn't be rebuilt, and that one man on a bridge couldn't stop an army. Sometimes he could. Sometimes he did. And sometimes the most dangerous man on the battlefield is the one nobody thought to watch. Drop a comment and answer me this. If you were sitting in that mess tent, listening to your brothers dying on the radio, would you have picked up that gun and walked to the bridge? Or would you have stayed where the army told you to stay? I want to know. I'll see you in the next one.